What's one missing person case that still sits in the back of your mind? Terrence Williams. Guy disappeared after being taken into custody by a sheriff's deputy in Naples, Florida, in 2004 for a traffic offense. The same deputy was later found to have been the last person to see Felipe Santos alive, before Santos also disappeared while in custody for a traffic offense. Andrew Gosden. Andrew Gosden was just 14 when he was last seen on the 14th of September 2007 in Doncaster, Yorkshire. His parents went to the grocery store to pick up some goods, as they believed he had already gone to school. While they were out, Andrew returned home and collected his belongings. He took his video game console, but not a charger. He then paid a £200 ticket and traveled to London. It took several weeks for CCTV to reveal that he had traveled to London. During this time, the police and media alike had thrown Andrew's father Kevin through the mud. Kevin was extensively questioned, with police even using the good cop, bad cop approach on him. By the time that it was finally proven that Andrew had left Doncaster, little could be done about it. Several theories have come to light in the 17 years since Andrew disappeared. One theory is that Andrew voluntarily disappeared. It has been theorized by some, including Andrew's parents, that he may be gay or transgender and afraid to come out. Another theory suggests he was traveling to London to meet somebody such as a groomer posing as a girl or a younger male. However, Kevin has stated on several occasions that Andrew did not have internet access. Other theories include that he was traveling to a concert or was picked up by an opportunistic predator. Some people have even suggested that serial killer Stephen Port was behind his murder. Andrew's parents have never given up hope of seeing their son alive again, although his dad has conceded that he knows Andrew did not leave voluntarily, after he did not turn up to the wedding of his sister Charlotte. This case happened in the early 80s in Western New York. I don't know the girl's name. She went to middle school, KC or Sweet Home, with a friend of mine. To put it briefly, a friend of mine had a classmate who just stopped coming to school all of a sudden. Other kids were concerned, so one girl's mom called the missing girl's mother to see what was wrong. She said her daughter had disappeared, but not to worry about it, because the police had been notified. There was nothing on the news about it and no information about how the case was going. So a few weeks later the classmate's mom called the police directly to ask about it, and found out the girl had never been reported missing. At that point, the classmate's mother made a missing person report. The girl was never found. As for what happened, the missing girl's mom, who had been divorced, had recently gotten married to a new guy. The new guy really didn't like the daughter. There was definitely something going on at home, like violence or abuse, but the girl wouldn't tell her friends any details. My friend thought the stepdad killed the girl and the mother colluded with him to cover it up. In the best case scenario, the girl ran away from home to get away from her stepdad, but that's still really bleak. The creepiness of the mom lying and claiming she made a missing person report when she hadn't makes this story stick in my mind. A local case here is Daniel Robinson. He was 24 when he went missing in 2021. This case baffles me and I hope to see it resolved someday sooner rather than later. Essentially, he was a geologist who left a job site and traveled towards a semi-rural area in Buckeye, Arizona. He was last seen driving his red Jeep Renegade and was traveling alone. The Jeep was later found crashed in a ravine with his personal items still inside of it: cell phone, wallet, keys. I suspect he sustained a head injury from the accident and then unfortunately wandered further into the desert and died from dehydration or his injuries. His body had never been found. Rachel Cook. The 19-year-old went for a morning jog in January 2002. A neighbor last saw her coming back a couple hundred yards from her house. She never made it home. I worked in news as a cameraman and had just started a job in this area about 7 months after this happened. We frequently checked in with the family at each anniversary of her disappearance, and anytime police found new evidence or possible locations of a body. The mother and father were such nice people, and it just broke my heart each time we talked to them as they just kept holding on to the tiniest bit of hope. Her father died in 2014, never having got any kind of closure. To this day, they have no suspects or a body. A friend from high school vanished in college. He got in a car accident, took an Uber to a seemingly random town, and was never seen again. Dogs lost his scent on a side road with almost nothing nearby. There's a theory he walked out on life, but the events leading up to his disappearance just don't feel right. If he set it up, why the car accident? How does that help him vanish? If he had someone waiting to pick him up, why risk injury with an accident? Brian Schaefer. I think about this one from time to time because it's so crazy. Went out to a bar with friends. They were outside. He was spotted on camera going inside the bar again, but he never came back out. City cameras have never seen him roaming the streets or anything to indicate a body was being disposed of. There was one exit that wasn't on camera, but it was under construction and the police said a sober person would have had a hard time using it, let alone a drunk person. He's never been found since. It's just crazy to me that this dude could walk into a building on camera, and that same camera never sees him come out. Lars Matank is still a creepy case. He was on vacation with his friends, hot ill and wanted to leave a few days later, as he was not able to go on a plane. The night before he wanted to fly back home, he called his mother and sent texts to her in a very confused way. He even made it to the airport and saw a doctor there, but while taking he jumped up and ran away. He was last seen on the airport camera, running away from the airport, never seen again. Rihanna Barreau disappeared from her home in Morphett Vale, South Australia in October 1992. Tragic case of wrong time, wrong place, as she was supposed to be meeting her mother for lunch at a nearby shopping center, but an impromptu bus strike that day meant she couldn't get there. She instead walked to her local shops to buy a Christmas card. It was confirmed by the shop that she had purchased the card. Witnesses confirmed seeing her walking home along a main road around 12:30 p.m. and the card was on the table when her mother arrived home shortly after 4 p.m. However, Rihanna was gone and never seen again, while some, including the lead detective on the case, believe a local is responsible and she is buried nearby. Info I have from PIs indicates that it's more likely she was spotted walking along the main road and the perpetrator followed her home, knocked on the door under false pretense and took her. Sadly, all the info that has been given to police hasn't been acted upon despite strong evidence for a ploy, and her case remains unsolved. I learned this story a while ago while studying sociology. In the 1950s, 1960s in the US, a black mother contacted the police and told them that her son was missing. They wanted to look good and to look like they were also helping black people at the time. The police found a random black boy on the street and made a whole show about how he was the lost son of the mother. When the mother said it wasn't her son, they declared her insane and sent her to an asylum until the day she died. Years later they admitted what they did. This sounds similar to the Walter Collins case. In 1929, he had gone missing and 5 months later, he was returned to his mother. He had been kidnapped by a man who had abducted several other boys. Walter's mom knew this wasn't her son and I believe was sent to an asylum. Gordon Stewart Northcott was found guilty of kidnapping, molesting and killing 3 young boys, one of whom presumed to be Walter. I don't think he ever told where the remains were. The boy who was believed to be Walter was a runaway who admitted he pretended to be Walter for the fame. Crystal Rogers went missing July 3, 2015, in Bardstown, Kentucky. Her boyfriend Brooks Houck was the last person to see her. 2 days later, her vehicle was found abandoned on the side of a highway along with her keys, purse, and cell phone. What's even weirder is her father was murdered not long after. 16 months after Rogers disappeared, her 54-year-old father, Tommy Ballard, was shot and killed on the morning of November 19, 2016. He had been hunting on his private property with his 12-year-old grandson, Rogers' eldest son, when he was shot once in the chest. Police have cleared the grandson of foul play and have also ruled out suicide, as Tommy's gun was never fired. Amy Lynn Bradley, she disappeared in March 1998 while on a Royal Caribbean cruise with her parents and brother. Investigators didn't believe she fell overboard because she was known to be a strong swimmer. Prior to her disappearance, she was seen dancing with a member of the cruise's band. The cruise ship allowed guests to leave the ship before conducting a search for Amy, allowing for anyone who may have been involved in her disappearance to get away, get rid of evidence, or even smuggle her off. There was a supposed sighting of her at a brothel asking a U.S. Navy member for help, and an image supposedly of her was sent to her parents, who were told it was from a site that followed victims of sex trafficking. I think of her every time I consider going on a cruise, or hear someone mention cruises. Personally, I think she was either killed and the ship allowed her killer to get away by not securing the ship, or she was trafficked. Either way, a cruise is a no for me. Back in the days of Justin TV and other life casting things, there was a random 14 or 15-year-old girl who streamed regularly. I was definitely not in the age range to be watching 15-year-old girls stream, early to mid-20s. But for whatever the reason she kept coming up on my algorithm even though I only really ever watched gaming and occasionally automotive streams. This was before it rebranded as Twitch. I eventually realized she was the younger sister of a 20-something gaming streamer I followed, which is probably why it kept recommending her to me, and they had the same last names in their profiles so it clicked. Eventually she went from streaming basically daily to zero, and her brother hadn't been on in a while either. So I googled her name and found a missing person report for her with pretty vague information, but enough to know that she likely ran off with an older man from the internet. As far as I know she's never turned up, despite occasional Facebook posts and things from her brother reposting the report for a few years. She seemed like such a happy and bubbly girl. Always wondered what happened to her and hope she's okay somewhere and just laying low. I don't remember his name, but that one kid from a Reddit thread, it was someone admitting to something that they did when they were younger. They had some kind of fight with a kid, and they accidentally knocked him off a cliff. The kid wasn't moving, so they panicked and ran home. They never told anyone except keeping it vague in their comment. Someone asked if it was a certain kid, then the original commenter deleted their entire Reddit account. Paige Rinkowski. She was a teacher who was last seen on I-96 on the side of the road talking to a man. Her car was running and her shoes and purse were in the car, but she completely vanished. Much was made that the man she was seen talking to was black, but I don't know if it was ever proven that she was seen talking to anyone. At any rate, her car was found running with the purse and shoes. One theory was that someone bumped into her and she pulled over to see if there was damage. My mom drilled it in my head to never, ever do that and to just keep driving if at all possible because of this case. One evening in 1974, an 18-year-old boy named Perry was involved in a very minor car accident in front of our local theater. He had had a couple of previous scrapes with the law and fled the scene before the police arrived. His car was later found parked next to the freeway about 15 miles south of town. With the engine still running, Perry was nowhere to be found, and hasn't been heard from since. This happened about half a year ago close to where I live. A 14-year-old got into a fight with a friend of his 2 days before Christmas. He goes home and the next day his parents fill in a missing persons report. The same day his bike gets found at the bridge close by my home. He hasn't been seen since. The police think the obvious happened and his jacket gets found in the water downstream a few days later. The thing that gets me is that there was 25,000 people searched for him for a whole day, which is the largest amount ever for a search party consisting of only volunteers in my country. To think that the teen felt so alone that he did not want to live anymore. But so many people showed up to get his body back home is heartbreaking. Had a kid in university disappear 2 days after I arrived. He was just gone. Nobody saw him go anywhere. His phone was left in his dorm and showed no history of activity beyond friends and family attempting to reach him. He wasn't on any security footage, he didn't show up in any of the public transportation security cameras, he had no history of dangerous behavior, nothing. His credit cards had gone unused since before he went missing. There was a community-wide search and investigation effort that lasted nearly a month. The last time anyone saw him was him leaving a party on the night that he went missing, and almost every student was interviewed including me, but nothing came of it. He had a car on campus, but it hadn't been operated since he arrived at the university. For a long time this was labeled as a missing person case with no known leads. It was like he fell into the back rooms, and before that was even a creepypasta. People made up theories about him walking into an alternate dimension. Think Twin Peaks, being snatched up by some cryptid, etc. However, his corpse was eventually found months later waterlogged in the bay a few miles from the university. No signs of external trauma. No evidence that he had drowned. No traces of foreign substances in his blood, no wounds, etc. Nobody knew what the hell happened to him, and it scared many people. The best I can assume is that he was kidnapped and died of natural causes, and then was dumped into the ocean. But according to the coroners, no fingerprints or anything were found on him. Spooky stuff. If you guys liked this video, please drop a like and subscribe, and also check out my Instagram account Scary Time that is linked in the description, and as always, stay scary.